Hello, everyone. My name is Taryn Pereira. I'm a researcher with the One Ocean Hub, which is an international transdisciplinary research project that's been going for the past 5 years, interested in ways of transforming ocean governance and putting human rights at the heart of ocean governance. I am based in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa at Rhodes University in Makanda, and I coordinate something called the Coastal Justice Network. In thinking about this seminar and thinking about challenges and opportunities for the social sciences in relation to conservation in Africa, I have decided to share a little bit about our work from within the Coastal Justice Network in engaging with marine protected areas and other forms of sort of tools for ocean governance and ocean conservation in South Africa. Myself and my colleagues within the Coastal Justice Network have a scholar activist orientation. All of us have long-standing relationships with small-scale fishers and other social movements working for environmental justice along the coast. This identity as activist researchers means that we are constantly grappling with what is the role of academics and what is the role of research and researchers in contributing to struggles for justice, and how do we orientate our research and our research relationships to be able to respond directly to specific injustices as they arise, as well as trying to shift wider systemic injustices in ocean governance, including injustices within our research cultures. So we are sort of working towards this impact statement, which we have co-developed as a South African One Ocean Hub team. And that impact statement is, we want to see that ocean decision-making in South Africa is informed by plural knowledges, collaborative practices, and best available evidence supporting inclusive ocean societies towards ecological, social, and economic justice. So if I hone in on the picture of marine protected areas along the coast of South Africa, we currently have 42 marine protected areas. There were a number of them that many of them come from, they've been there around for decades, but quite a few were declared in 2019. There was an expansion of our marine protected area estate, and currently there's a push towards the 30 by 30 goal, so 30% of South Africa's oceans to be under protection by 2030. Of course, marine protected areas, as with other sectors looking at conservation, have become more and more sensitive to and prioritizing of the needs for inclusion, participation, and the social benefits of protected areas. But in reality and in practice, marine protected areas can and do create and amplify conflicts within particular areas between social actors. And this is really exacerbated by poor participatory practices and a lack of co-management within our marine protected areas. The little pink blobs on some of these marine protected areas are marine protected areas where there is present and ongoing conflict and human rights violations that communities are reporting and responding to within these protected areas. These two diagrams indicate some of the perceptions and what has come from small-scale fishers in our network in terms of their questions and critiques of marine protected areas. The first illustration shows an aeroplane piloted, with scientists on board flying over the coast and saying there are no people there, let's turn it into an MPA. And on the shore are fisher folk saying, can they not see us? Why are we invisible to them? And then the second image is just indicating, as I said, that we have 42 marine protected areas currently in South Africa. but the number of co-managed marine protected areas, or indeed of any areas that are co-managed with small-scale fishers, which is a commitment within our small-scale fishers policy, remains sadly at 0. There is a history of tension and real damage caused in the relationships between researchers and coastal communities. So this is Mr. Jerry Mgomezulu, who's the chairperson of the Cozy Bay Affected Communities Organization. And he has said in meetings and interviews with us that there have been hundreds and thousands of master's and PhD theses written about Cozy Bay. And it's this pile of research that's been used by the authorities to steal our lands and waters from us. So marine conservation in South Africa retains legacies of colonialism, apartheid, and fortress conservation, and is responsible for high social costs and rights violations. Despite the recognition of the importance of social justice and human rights-based approaches, putting this into practice in marine conservation remains a challenge. Marine spatial planning and marine protected areas are management tools. They look for scalability. They look for quantifiable impact on a narrow set of indicators. Social science helps to bring us the tools to assess and evaluate why these approaches to conservation often fail, and give us the lenses to expand our thinking about conservation beyond technical and tool-based approaches. Social science allows us to expand how we measure impact, to include consideration of history, context, values, meaning-making, political identities, justice, and can give us some of the methods for putting human rights-based approaches to conservation into action. Some of the challenges for social sciences within marine conservation paradigms are, the persistence of misperceptions or a sense of talking past one another between the natural sciences and the social sciences. This idea that science is neutral, unbiased, rigorous, and replicable, whereas social science is perceived often as being subjective, idealistic, unreliable, unscalable. There remain debates about whether academics should take a stand on matters, for example, on political or policy decisions that violate human rights, or whether the role of academics is to remain neutral and just to provide reliable data and science for decision makers to work with without taking a public stand. Another challenge is that some of the extra academic work that engaged social scientists do is not very visible or valued within our academic institutions. So an engaged social scientist is not just doing research and writing it up. They might also be writing press statements, working with community-based organizations to document what is happening for them, writing it up in all kinds of materials that are not necessarily seen as academic materials, in addition to all of the academic workload that we are required to do within our positions. There's the perception that the recommendations of social scientists to make conservation more participatory, inclusive, plural, are unrealistic and impractical, and therefore they're not taken very seriously sometimes. And the urgency of the threats to ocean health means that conservation scientists can be impatient with social scientists' recommendations that we put a lot more time and capacity into meaningful participatory processes for co-management. And it can mean that communities are often not trusted as ocean custodians to take a lead in local conservation. But what we see is that this impatience and this sense of urgency means that when we continue with sort of conservation as it has been done in quite a top-down, technical, management, tool-based approach, we see that sadly this is failing. It's failing to achieve the conservation imperatives, and it's perpetuating injustices within coastal communities. So we have been asking, alongside our small-scale fisher partners, where are small-scale fishers in marine spatial planning? Where are small-scale fishers in marine protected areas? Where is their knowledge? Where is their contribution as ocean defenders being valued? How is it that they remain marginalized in all these forms of ocean governance? And we've been working with people with a range of participatory mapping processes, mapping both history, social relations, mapping what is currently happening along the coast, trying to develop spaces for more meaningful participation of small-scale fishers in ocean decision-making, and working within our network with artists and theatre makers as a method and a research approach which surfaces the plural values of the sea that can be missed or overlooked through other means of research. So some of our lessons from collaborations between social scientists and natural scientists in supporting fishers to challenge some of the marine protected area zonations in one MPA in South Africa are that we have to ensure meaningful participation, we have to recognize history and local context, we have to embrace diverse knowledge systems, we have to ensure effective co-management, and we need to secure the resources for effective participation, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. These things take time, they take money, they take capacity, and we have to value them and resource them if they're going to happen. And finally, some of our recommendations for those, for teams that are working with social scientists and natural scientists in transdisciplinary teams. Sorry, that's my timer going off. Just final slide is that to make these collaborations for conservation far more effective, we need to make time and space for diverse actors within transdisciplinary groups to understand the opportunities and the challenges of working solidarities between social scientists and natural scientists, and between academics and community-based ocean defenders. We need to ensure that time and energy is committed to learning spaces that explore our different stances and tensions and politics that happen between different ways of doing research as and when they arise. And then to position these spaces of tension as spaces of learning rather than as spaces where we fall apart and diverge again, to identify structural and systemic blockages to what are ultimately our shared goals. And then we need to allow the space and support within transdisciplinary groups of researchers for some researchers to take a public stand in solidarity with those on the front lines of environmental injustice, but also to respectfully understand that there are some researchers who are constrained to do so because of their institutional setup, because of their relationships with government partners, and so on. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I look forward to engaging with you further and answering questions in our webinar on the 23rd. Thank you.